There's something scary about the fact that we spend an awful lot of time with devices instead of forming personal relationships.
People have been falling in love with machines for centuries.
People in ancient Greece are having sex with statues, all kinds of things. So, you know, never underestimate the human capacity for sex.
It will probably look very much like we interact. The machines increasingly will take on human characteristics. They will speak, they will listen, they will appear to have emotion.
We can live our relationships through technology. So we can meet people online, we can chat to them, we can form quite a strong bond with them. So it's really not that great a leap to imagine that we're doing that, but there's just an AI on the other end rather than a person.
The way empathy works for humans is it's when we use our own experience and expectations to try to understand what the other person is doing. But we don't have to do that with AI. And that's if you get a recommender system, any kind of recommender, like, you know, for example, Amazon recommending books that you might read, or Spotify suggesting the next song you might want to hear. All of those systems are based on having data not about the machine itself, but about other people. And so therefore, machine empathy could actually be better than human empathy.
I think it's really fascinating thinking about how we could give AI human-like emotions. And it's tricky because there's an argument for things like pain in robots. So if we could let a robot experience pain, it would know its limitations. So it perhaps wouldn't do things that might damage it. Could we do the same for love? Could we make a robot that could experience how to care for someone so it knows when to make certain decisions about someone's care? Whether or not we can do that is really tricky because we don't even really know how our own brains work in response to that, let alone how to build an artificial one. Whether or not we should do that is a whole other ethical debate.
The question is this kind of love with a machine that pretends to be a human a different thing, and is it something that will isolate humans from each other? I don't really care if humans fall in love with machines. What I care about is whether we destroy the human communities that I think are the sort of the best part of humanity.
You can imagine maybe that we can take some of the smart fabrics we have today, make something perhaps like a sleeping bag that could cuddle you, perhaps, or you know, a cushion that can become aroused. You could have all kinds of things. You can invent whatever you like. You could have something with 20 arms or 30 breasts or 5 penises. But you could also have a virtual reality experience where you are immersed in a virtual world and you can have tactile feedback. So it feels like someone is touching you. It feels like you're integrating with someone, but they're just virtual.
What happens when it's more compelling to interact with a machine than it is to interact with another human?
We always have this desire for fictions that are nicer than reality. But the fundamental thing we have to have as a society to be able to solve problems is connections to other humans.
How much time do we spend as a community, as a society, having face-to-face interactions physically versus interactions that are mediated by machines? You could have a very dark vision of the future where people would have very little contact with each other and they'd be engaged with these systems that we've built and perhaps very happy, I don't know.
There's a lot of controversy over whether or not a robot or an AI should seem human.
A robot should never be more anthropomorphic, more human-like than is absolutely necessary. So what does it mean absolutely necessary? Well, if you're using language, well, then that's already sort of human-like, but there's no reason to have a voice that sounds like a human's voice, right?
Or a woman,
or,
like Siri's
certainly
voice.
not to have gender, right? The only reason to do that, of course, is commercial. There's a lot of people that like to dominate women. There's a lot of people that are comfortable and familiar with telling women what to do. And so, yes, that's an easier interface.
You could see a world in which you could give an aging human a machine companion? And that raises all kinds of questions that I don't think have been answered yet. I mean, is that as horrible as parking them in front of a television?
The robot is providing companionship for someone that really couldn't play any other social role. So it's like morphine. You know, if it's really the end of your life, then okay, maybe that's a good way to do it. Although, are we fooling ourselves? Is it really something that's giving that person fulfillment?
We put people into nursing homes and we immediately turn them into non-sexual beings, despite the fact that we have surveys that show people are having sex into their 80s and 90s and want to do so. But that environment is not conducive to it. So perhaps that's an opportunity for them to be able to have their needs met.
If you lived with someone for 50 years and they died, you might want to be able to share those experiences that you had with them in the future. And I can see that happening. And I think using AI technologies and related computer techniques, you could make those, you know, you could go beyond a digital photo and actually interact with that person.
Are you saying that there's nothing else you want to do with your life than to live with the memory of that partner or something? I think it would be nice for a lot of people if they can get out and form new lives and find new relationships.
The very fact that we are social means that companies can come along and exploit that. We see it all the time in interaction design where people use our habits against us.
It's not at all clear to me that Facebook, which was supposed to bring us together, in fact has brought us together.
If we project that into the future, where will we end up?
If we're in a very capitalist system, I don't think we'll end up in a very good place because the values will be about profit and not about human interaction.